Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. Excited to see if I can keep this thing rolling. I didn't realize you go to do these extra steps, and it really adds a lot of post-production to it. So I'm trying to get all of it ironed out, trying to get a system in place that allows me to do this quickly and efficiently, but still be value, for you guys to find value in it. So, if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, if you missed our last episode, episode 130 is where we started doing our video podcast as well. So if you're listening to this on audio version through any of the podcast feeds, this same format is being released on our YouTube channel with video. It's you can see the interviews, faces, those type of things. And then sometimes, if available, there'll be additional footage based upon who we're talking to and what we're talking about. And this will be one of those. So we'll get into that in a second when I introduce our guest, actually. So what we're looking at is free on all the podcast channels, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, all that stuff, free on our YouTube channel. But if you're a Patreon supporter at our sow or boar tier, you have access to the audio version and the video version without these front intros, without these bumpers. We get straight into the interviews. And the reason why I did that is I know there's some people that say, hey, I'm commuting, or I'm in my vehicle for X amount of time, or I've only got X amount of time at my desk. So let's cut to the chase, Troy. So what this does, it allows you, I know some guys even like to listen to me at 1.5 speed, which I get it. I totally understand that. You just want to kind of ingest the interview and move about your day. So that's what I'm being sensitive to. Those that just want to kind of wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Let's get on with the show type of thing. So if you want to skip all of this this introduction, this tee off type stuff that I'm doing here right now, then you can do so by being a Patreon member at the sow or boar level. And there's links in the show notes for you guys to check that out. So looking at my notes here, what we have. So I want to first give a shout out to our Patreon supporters, and I really appreciate those. Anytime you make a shift like this, you're worried that, okay, am I going to lose people? Are people going to bail out? Whatever the case may be. And I got to say, I appreciate you guys sticking in there. And we actually picked up another boar level sponsor. So it was an upgrade. And so I'm going to go down our list. I just want to make sure I do this every time. Give a shout out to those that are really making the podcast happen. All tier levels, of course, help us make it happen. But those that have gone to the highest tier to really support, I appreciate that. And that's Kyle Hood, John Mosher, Mark Purcell, David Jones Beam III, Tina Viallard, and Tina, I'm sorry, I probably slaughter your name every single time. My good buddy Chuck Lewis, Fritz Seabolt, Noah West, who's been our longest supporter. In fact, I just got a message from Noah just a second ago. Appreciate him being a part of that since day one. And Rob Dowdle. Rob's our newest. He was always been a supporter, but he went up to the boar level recently. And we've had Rob on the podcast multiple times. A really good source of information for Rob. In fact, if you're looking at a lot of feed discussion, a lot of grazing, planting, those type of things, be sure to check out his YouTube channel because he's got a lot of detail he shared on that. So updates that we have here on the farm. We are, I'd mentioned last time that we're getting rid of our breed stock. We're moving to new genetics in the spring. So we're taking this time to get rid of what we have and, of course, let the pastures, the woodlots rest, to do some infrastructure repair. That's the plan, at least. So of the 5 breed stock, 4 breed stock, and then Merida, the old lady that hung around forever, we're down to 3 now. So Merida and Squealy Dan are gone. And Merida led a really good life. She was a little over 9 years old. The the arthritis that was building up in her front trotters was pretty bad. So really watching her struggle on the hillside. If I had a big, fluffy, flat pasture with a little shelter in the corner that she could hang out in, then she could have probably made it some more. So, who knows? Could have made it another year or more. But with the slope that we have here and the amount of climbing she had to do, it was really tough for her. And especially, I noticed as we got into colder times, I feed down at the lowest level. So I feed down like at the watershed level where the small stream that runs through our property is. And this time of year, the pigs are smart enough. They know where the thermocline is. They'll go up to the top of the pasture to stay warm and not be in a frost pocket. And so Merida, that made her struggle more and more, having to climb that. And obviously there's just no way around that. I can't eliminate slope on our property. It is what it is. So she led a good life, and now she has a really nice view of the valley. We'll just put it that way. She ended well. Okay, and another thing going on. So this is where juggling cats comes into place. So as at the time of recording this bumper, I am preparing to do a several day trip, kind of an extended trip to Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee. Be working with be working with a team from our church that we're putting together disaster relief for Eastern Tennessee, doing some specifics, a lot of tree work. So we'll be taking chainsaws and heavy equipment and all that type of stuff to help some of these people. I was down there just this weekend, did a day trip down and back to do an assessment, to get an understanding of what was needed, so I can present that to our team. Our team can make sure they're outfitted and equipped with the proper equipment needed to go down there and make the most of what we need to get done. So that's it's going to be a long day. It's going to be long several days actually doing that, but just glad that we can be a part, that we can try to bless these people, because man, it's just amazing what I saw in this one little area of Tennessee. And I know it was bad all over the place, and people losing everything. I mean, literally everything. One family went to, their house was gone. They were just, my truck was parked where their house used to sit, and they said, here's where our house used to be, and it's just gone. So, just really heartbreaking stuff there. Well, as I also mentioned, what we're doing as the podcast grows, and the Red Tool House Media Group is what I'm playfully calling it. There's a lot of things influencing here. So we do have sponsors. We want to take care of that. Just, of course, that's another way that we can help justify what we do here and fund some new expansion. I'd love to get some better cameras for the video, what we're doing here, so you can really see all the ugliness that I have in my face, as well as just update what we can, add new features. So we do have a sponsor, and this is kind of a spillover from the Red Tool House side, and that sponsor is Frontier. Frontier is a subsidiary of Norwood, which Norwood is a company that created the sawmill that I have. Well, Frontier is kind of their entry-level tier of sawmills, but they also do tractor implements, and they have produced, it's brand new, they've produced the DH8 wood chipper, which I've just got this thing assembled. I'm excited to start slinging wood chips, but it is a pretty neat machine. So it's a 3-point hitch tractor attachment, PTO driven. It has an 8-inch throat, so it can take material up to 8 inches. And it's going to be great for, we have a wood chipper already, have a smaller one, but it's going to be great to be able to take that up a notch and continue to make wood chips, not only for our compost bed building that we're doing with the chickens, but some deep litter that we're going to get into. Once we get back into farrowing and those type of things, I want to be able to do some deep litter in some key areas there, using deep bed of wood chips for the pigs to be hanging out on, especially in our muddy months of winter where we have sacrificial areas. We got to have them hang out. So really excited about that. The thing I like about it, so it's as I mentioned, it's PTO driven, but it's also have hydraulic feed. So it has in feed, and that's forward and reverse. If you get a jam, you can obviously back it out. It has variable speed, so you can basically make that in feed advance whatever you want, all the way up to maximum. But there's just kind of unlimited settings between the lowest and the highest, because it's just a hydraulic flow valve basically is what you're doing. So pretty slick there. And what I like about it is the hydraulics are run by the PTO shaft. So my tractor is old and small enough that it doesn't have hydraulic wet lines on the back. So a lot of these hydraulic based 3-point hitch attachments, you gotta have your wet lines to plug those in. My tractor doesn't have that, but this wood chipper doesn't require that. So the spinning of the PTO spins the hydraulic pump as well as spinning the chipper head itself. So I'm going to put a link below in the show notes if you guys want to check out the brand new DH8. And then of course we'll have videos on our YouTube channel showing that. And actually, I think we're going to be doing a full build video. There's some assembly required. It's not like it comes in small pieces, but for shipping we have to put some things together. And this is so new. I don't believe there's any video source outside on YouTube at all that covers that. So that'll be something we'll put out there. Okay, so let's talk about our guest. Our guest today, we're going to Southwest Arizona, and I just love looking talking to these people that are raising pigs in what I would consider inhospitable climates and landscape, but they're getting it done. So I'm talking with Weedy Weidenthal. I love that name. So Weedy is in the high desert of Southwest Arizona, and he's using his pigs to remove invasive. These creosote. I'm not familiar with that plant, but he sent me some pictures. So the pigs are doing a great job uprooting all of these invasives, and they're coming back and reseeding. But they're also using a deep litter method with basically looks like a high tunnel that they're keeping the pigs in. Lots of wood chips, lots of organic material. Pigs can root all that up, and of course their manure and urine gets mixed into that, and that's creating soil for them. And that soil is being used in their orchard where they're doing silvopasture methods to be able to build up soil, to build up great opportunities there. So really, really neat stuff. So I'm going to at the end of this, when we do the end bumper, I want to share with you all some of the images that he sent after the interview. So stick around if you're watching the video. Stick around and you'll be able to see these pictures, and I'll just give the captions that go along with it. So just be kind of a quick slideshow of going through the visuals of what he talks about. And I think it'd be good. You get to hear what he's talking about first, then we'll do the visuals at the end, so you can have those elements there. All right, so let's get on with Weedy here. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. Excited to come back with another episode. Today, we are going down to Arizona, and you wouldn't think there'd be much pastured pig activity in Arizona, but we've had people on here that talk about that. But today, I'm talking with Weedy Weidenthal with Weidenthal Family Farm, and that is a mouthful. I found myself actually kind of lisping a little bit there. So, welcome, Weedy. How are you today?
Thanks for having me.
All right, so I got to say, this has to be the coolest name we have ever had in 130 episodes on the podcast. So I'm going to assume your Weedy name is a nickname based on your last name, not your God-given name from your mother and father.
That's correct, but my grandfather also went by Weedy when he was at VMI, and he was a general in the Army. And so it's kind of a hand-me-down nickname from my grandfather.
Awesome. Did you say VMI?
Yep.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, that's kind of over here in this neck of the woods.
Yep.
All right, so tell me a little bit about Weidenthal Family Farm. First of all, obviously we said Arizona, so for us Easterners that don't have a lot of information about Arizona, like I was telling you pre-screening, I've only been there once. What is kind of the overall setup? Are you like flaming hot desert sand? Do we have pigs on sand, or what's going on over there?
We are not nearly as hot in our area as like Phoenix or Tucson, where everybody thinks about in Arizona. We have a couple of 100-degree days in the summer. I'm getting used to it. We just bought this property a little over a year ago, and I'm used to being about another 1,000 feet up in elevation at my house. So we're still kind of learning that property. But yeah, I think during the summer we had a couple 103, 104-degree days. But it was just a couple of them, because what happens here is we get into monsoon season in July. So right when things are about to get really hot, the rain comes in and pulls everything down. And then we have monsoon from like July 4th to mid-August or so.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the soil type like out there? I mean, are you dealing with like I said, I was at a high elevation, so I was about 6,000 feet when I was in Arizona, and it was grazable land, but it was like these pockets of grass with pockets of exposed earth and kind of really dusty, more so than sandy.
Yeah, so it is like a dusty clay sand. It's you can easily make adobe out of the soil here. Um, and it is a little bit rocky, but what a lot of people don't realize is that just a little over 100 years ago, we were entirely grasslands down in our area. And we're not very far from the San Pedro River. We're about 2 miles away from there. So we do have a little bit more lush vegetation in a lot of the areas, but yeah, everything was overgrazed, and long ago everything was overgrazed, and we're trying to kind of restore the desert and bring it back to life.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, that intrigues me. Some of the research and some of the work I've seen done in that, where they're coming back and regreening the desert, whether it's Southwest United States or even in Africa, is just fantastic. I mean, it's just amazing and amazing. And we'll get into this here in a second, but I know you kind of lean that direction. You have a permaculture element to everything you do on your farm, right?
Yep. So we when we bought the property, we got 20 acres, and it was basically just sand and creosote when we bought it. And we did go out with a skid steer just to get started, to have our first little bit of clear land to get everything moving. And the first thing we did was brought out chickens and ducks, and then we started letting them kind of clear up the remainder of what was out there. And then we brought in the pigs and kind of started pushing back the creosote more. So far we've cleared about 4 total acres,
Yeah.
and we've replanted. We're bringing in a permaculture orchard. So far we've planted about 60 trees. Every third tree is a nitrogen fixing tree. And actually, it's funny, the way I found you was I was doing research on black locust and honey locust, and I found your YouTube video on that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I found out that you were also the pastured pig guy.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So obviously, I'm exposing my ignorance here. You said creosote. So when I think of creosote, I think of the pitch they put on the railroad ties. So educate me on this. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so it's really just like an invasive shrub.
Oh,
And it has chemicals that when it rains, it comes off, and like we always talk about the way that desert rain smells. It's actually the creosote coming off of the plants. It's like a wax.
no kidding.
But the creosote really inhibits grass growth, so you have to get it out to really get your pasture started.
Wow. So I mean, does it have like juggalones type of thing in it, where it's actually keeping anything from growing, or is it just because it's waxy, it's kind of choking stuff out?
It's some kind of toxin that inhibits growth.
No kidding.
It doesn't really persist in the soil, but while it's alive, it'll choke everything out.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. So you say it's a shrub. So as you mentioned, I guess with the ducks and the chickens, are they able to ingest that okay, or are they just kind of trampling it down, and you guys are plowing it up with the skid steer, as you said?
Well, now the pigs are doing more of the clearing. So it started off with the skid steer, and then we took the chickens and ducks in, and we let them take up, everything that was mowed down. So we had like a mower mulcher attachment on the skid steer.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. All right. So, so you talked about the monsoon season. So I assume water there is still, even outside of the season, water's probably a premium. I don't know how many inches of rainfall you guys get a year, but I know what I saw in central Arizona. Percolation happens really quick. You don't have a lot of standing water. Wells are really deep. How are you managing water? Are you doing rain catchment wells combination?
Right now we have a well. We're working on, like in our permaculture orchard, we've built swales around every tree, and we've done a lot of, we've been spreading 4 inches of wood chips all across the 2 acres where the orchard is going. So we're trying to work on that moisture retention, and then we are hoping that we close on our house here, and we live in Bisbee, and our farm's in Sierra Vista, so we commute. We're hoping we close on our house here in the next couple of weeks, and we start building out on the farm. And then we'll be doing lots of water catchment, and we're gonna dig some big swales and do some berms and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. So the house that you're in right now is a house that you guys have on the market, selling it, and then you'll be able to move full time to the farm.
Yep.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Excellent.
Yeah, that commute is it's hard, and it's about a 25-minute commute, but it's you go out there and take care of all the animals, and it's tough.
Yeah.
Don't It's not fun to live away from the animals and not really know what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. That's like I say, that drive by itself isn't terrible, but like you said, when it comes to animal husbandry and management and those type of things, that can become more stressful, I guess, knowing that you've got a lot of
Yeah.
vulnerable livestock, 30 minutes away, and that causes concern there.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the animals you do have. Obviously, Pasture Pig Podcast will camp out at pigs here in a second, but with the permaculture, I'm a big fan of permaculture. I love all the application of it. So, kind of give me that overall, not only just the animals, but we talked about the orchard and some of the other permaculture things you're doing. But what is kind of the layout of who's hanging around the farm animal wise?
Yeah, so it's chickens, ducks, and pigs for now. We're hoping to bring in dairy goats in the near future. And so, yeah, the pigs have been clearing land for us to move the chickens and ducks onto and follow them around. So that's been working out really well. The next step is to bring in those dairy goats. I want to get away from supplementing the pigs with, synthetic lysine. So we'll be able to get away from that once we've got the dairy. So we're hoping that within the next year we'll have like a small licensed micro dairy, and in Arizona we can do raw milk with proper testing and everything. So hopefully we'll have a small raw milk dairy to supplement all of this.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, I love that idea of bringing in a milk producing animal to not only produce milk for personal consumption, but of course all that surplus that you have to be able to use that to manage the pigs. So, and I'm sure this is kind of still on paper for you guys right now, but what's the ratio, the scalability ratio of that? So how many dairy producing goats do you need per pig type of thing to produce enough milk?
Yeah, so with our pigs right now, we are trying to send 4 per month to processing.
Okay.
And so ideally they get a couple of gallons each a day. So it would need to be a whole lot of goats. We're looking at bringing in 20 of them, and then that'll get us about 20 gallons per day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not quite enough at that scale, but it'll make a big dent in the whole process. We'll probably do mostly cheese making, and then we'll feed them more whey than whole milk or anything like that.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, because you're getting the protein source in the whey there, and like you said, the lysine and some of those other things. It's not going to be extracted completely from cheese.
Yeah.
Cool. So why? And again, I'm a rabbit trail kind of guy, so let's go down a rabbit trail here real quick. So synthetic lysine. So what have you seen in your research to say, okay, this is where I really want to camp out. This is going to require me to milk 20 plus goats daily and put that work in it. So is the juice worth the squeeze, or why is the juice worth the squeeze in that situation?
Yeah, well, some of it, I'm a foodie. That I started farming because I'm a foodie, and couldn't really find the quality of meat that I wanted. And I've had dairy-fed pork before, and I think it's the best. So that was a lot of that. The rest of it is we are a corn and soy-free farm for our pigs and for our chickens and ducks. And so you really don't get enough lysine from, we're feeding field peas, barley, a little bit of Milo, and then we do a little bit of fish meal, but we're still pretty far short on our lysine that we need. And that's the one thing that's really preventing us from having any kind of organic claim, if we want to work towards organic certification, that is. That's kind of part of that is, we're doing a lot of things where we have to mix and mill our feed, and we can't buy this feed readily available from any mill near us or anything. So we mix it, we mill it, and then our customers are asking us if it's organic. I'm like, well, it's almost organic. It's like 99.9% organic. Then we have 0.1% of this added lysine, and so hopefully in the future we can get to that organic certification and get away from the lysine.
Nice.
And then also we can have the benefit of feeding the milk to the pigs that I believe creates a better flavor.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. So that's the justification there is the organic element, and of course, like you said, better flavor profile, better texture, all the things that go along with a milk-fed pork product. Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool. So, okay, so let's talk about the setup a little bit. So you mentioned 20 acres. We know we've got a pretty good idea now of water and topography and soil type. So, how many pigs? And he also said you want to process several a month. So how are you handling it? A, how many pigs do you normally have on farm at any given time, or how many you're trying to? And how are you staggering that so you've got a mature pig or several mature pigs each month?
Yeah, so basically we've just been buying 4 weaner pigs a month. So that part of it's pretty simple.
That works out great.
Yeah, we have 1 pig per month is already claimed by one of our co-ops. So there's a local co-op that does CSA shares for their members, and they need 1 pig per month. So we already have that one. That one's already claimed. So that leaves us 3 available. We're trying to do 1 per month as a butchering class. So ideally, we can get up to 10 people in a class, and they can come out and they can observe the process, be part of it, and we'll do butchering. We do scald and scrape, so they'll learn to scald and scrape a pig, eviscerate a pig, cut up the carcass. We do one half as like an American style with typical roast and chops. The other half, I call it Italian style. I've never been to Italy, so I don't know if that's truly accurate, but that's like our half for charcuterie. And so we make Lonzino, prosciutto, capicola. We're trying to do some traditional nitrite-free bacon that can hang at room temperature, be stored, hanging from somebody's kitchen roof or kitchen ceiling.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. So your supplier of feeders, is that one farm that's cranking out that many pigs, or do you have to, because of needing feeders each month, you have kind of a rotation of farms that you're buying your stock from?
Yeah, so we're in a bit of a transition where we're going to start farrowing in a few months. I bought some old spots that are going to be, one of them's going to be used as a breeder, and we're going to be doing AI with some old line Durocs from Hendrix Durocs. And then we've been buying 4 red wattles a month, and we're on the verge of scaling that up to either 6 or 8, actually. The demand out here is just so high. So yeah, that's we're going to be keeping a few of those red wattles back also for breeding.
Yeah, yeah, good deal. So that'll allow you to obviously not have to purchase every month. There'll be windows, obviously, that you'll be, hey, my 4 pigs I need this month are coming from our litter. And
yep.
Yeah, of course, if you have,
and then we'll sell off the excess.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess maybe some will even spill over into the next month, because 30-day window on those pigs ain't gonna be that big a deal when it comes to processing, I would think. So
right.
Cover 2 months, right. And like you said, if we had a litter of 13, then we're selling off the others as feeders. That's
yeah, cool. And so what we send to the processor. So I mentioned we have the one that goes to our co-op. That's a state inspected facility. We have state inspection for in-state sales, for retail sales. Mm-hmm. And then we have the 1 pig per month that's going to be a butcher class, at least 2 per month that are going for custom exempt. And that processor, if you get above 300 pounds live weight, they charge you a premium. So we're targeting that 300-pound live weight going to the processor. But what we want to do in our butchering classes is more in the 350, 400-pound range.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and it's good to have that outlet and to know, be able to brace for that, to say, well, this turned out to be a pretty good sized hog. Let's keep that here for our own processing and send the ones that are more manageable to the processor, so you don't get hit with that fee. Yeah, definitely. So here I do want to spend some time here, because I think this is fascinating. So we obviously talk about pasturing pigs, and we talk about rotating pigs, giving them access to as much land as possible, moving that around to reduce impact on the land. But there are times, however, that it may be more conducive to not rotate them as much. So tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing with your pigs and how that folds into your permaculture principles.
Yeah, so since we need to clear the land to establish pasture, they are staying on their land for a lot longer than what a lot of people do who already have an established pasture. Because we want them to completely clear it out, and it looks like they're getting just about everything out of the ground for us, other than there's some kind of thorny, wispy bush thing, and everybody that I've talked to out here calls it something different. I don't know what it actually is. One of the many things in Arizona that wants to poke you, and
Yeah.
the pigs just don't want to go for it. So those are getting pulled out by hand as we go through. But yeah, we're letting them take everything down to complete bare earth, and then there's lots of rocks in the soil, so they're bringing the rocks up to the surface, and then we can kind of scoop them away and use that for building retaining walls and things like that.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, when you say that, I think of like northern Scotland, where you see all these really awesome walls, and you think, okay, some poor suck picked every single one of those up and placed them over here into the wall, and but
Yeah.
that's what allows them to have these awesome pastures.
Yeah, the pigs do a good job bringing that up to the surface. They obviously aren't putting it in a pile for us, but they loosen it up to where we can easily go through and scoop it up.
Yeah. So as you move them out of a certain paddock that you feel is kind of moonscape the way that you want it, how are you reseeding? What's your plan there to come back and try to build that pasture up?
Yeah, so in the 2 acres that is the orchard, we're planting the trees and everything, and then in the rows between the trees, we're planting a lot of clover. We're doing radishes, turnips. So those radishes and turnips are good for no-till gardening. Basically, they're going to grow deep down into the ground, form their roots, and then they're going to rot, and they're going to leave hollow channels for water to run through.
Awesome.
Um, so that part's working out pretty well. We do have to cover, like I said, everything gets covered with wood chips. And then in the area around that 2 acres, we're seeding more native grasses. So I don't really want to bring in high water intensity grasses and things like that. So the native grasses do well out here with minimal amounts of water. And then we're also planting, it's a little bit of a silvopasture. We're going to be planting white mulberry and poplar.
Excellent. Yeah, so it sounds like with your orchard, it sounds like you're kind of doing an alleyway method to some degree, where I assume you're planting your trees in berms and then allowing the pigs to kind of go up the center lane of that type of thing.
Yep.
Awesome.
Exactly. So that's how that's working. The trees, it's pretty difficult. With the trees, we planted them 25 feet apart, so there's a pretty big alley between them. Normally the spacing is recommended at like 15 to 20 feet, and a third of these trees are apple trees, a third of them are nitrogen fixing trees, and then the other third are just various fruits, peaches, nectarines, figs, and then this is like the food forest idea where around each tree we're planting 4 shrubs, so lots of blackberry and raspberries, and then under the shrubs we're planting perennials, and then all of that's on wood chips that's getting inoculated with mushroom spores, and then mycorrhizal fungi over all of it.
Oh, awesome, awesome! And obviously, you're bringing the pigs right up to the edge of that, so they're not going to have access necessarily to that berm or that guild of food. But anything that falls, that forage is going to be there once the trees are mature. Then.
Yep. Yeah, and that was kind of the idea with the old spots. They're the traditional pasture pig or orchard pig, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just something about if we're doing a fruit orchard and having the pig that traditionally lived in the orchard, I just had to have
it. Yeah, no, that's great, man. Yeah, it's been proven there. That breed selection's been managed well in those type of areas. So that is really, really exciting. I'd love to see pictures of that particularly. In fact, this is me thinking out loud, and I may eat these words later, but if you've got an opportunity with even with a smartphone to take some pictures of some of that stuff, then we can actually include them in this video version that we'll have on YouTube, and there'll be some visuals to go along with what me and our listeners are trying to envision as you talk about this.
Yeah.
So that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. It just started getting established just in the fall, so most of the trees are currently 4 feet tall.
Sure. Yeah.
We're still going through. It's a lot of shrubs. So you do 4 shrubs per tree. You got 240 shrubs to plant. So you got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
but it's really interesting to see it all coming around. Even though we just planted a lot of this in October, we had our first growing season with it. So October of last year, had our first growing season with it, and seeing it all come to life, it's been exciting. And it's one of those things where it doesn't necessarily look that impressive when you see the snapshot of the current state of it, but if you see where it came from and see where it is now, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and granted, like you say, it's something that new is not going to have huge canopies and all those type of things, but just just visualizing that in my mind, that 25-foot wide alley, the berms with the guilds in it, it's just fantastic. So do you think what's your water demand on keeping those alive right now? Obviously, we know the wood chips are going to be retaining a lot of moisture there, and they're really going to take advantage of that. But have you in that first growing season, have you seen a huge demand of water? Is it going problematic?
It's been about 5 gallons of water per tree per week.
Okay.
And then we didn't have to water it all during the monsoon season because we had a really good monsoon this year. Got 14 inches of rain in 6 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
And that might not sound like much.
Well, yeah.
On the East Coast, that might not sound like much.
Yeah, for
that's
Arizona.
A lot of water
that is for Arizona for sure. And I mean, considering your annual still probably under 20 inches total for the whole year, right?
Yeah, I mean, almost all the water comes in that 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll get a little bit of snow in the winter.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we get to 16 inches on the year, that would be a really good year of total rainfall.
So in that area of Arizona, I know different parts of the West, there's different restrictions. Are you allowed to catch any of that monsoon water? So is there a plan for impoundments or tanks or anything like that to catch runoff?
Yeah, we're working with the Department of Agriculture to figure out what we need to do for our various types of runoff. What it seems like, I don't know if this is 100% factual, but what it seems like is the state considers the water to be state water once it hits the ground. But if you're running it off of a roof or something like that, that's your water. So, yeah, so we can divert it where we want it, and we can build swales, we can do all that stuff. But once it's on the ground, we can't really change it at that point.
Okay, so I mean, at least you know what the rules are in that situation. So as you guys build infrastructure, as you move out to the property, then strategic placement of sheds and farrowing huts and barns and roof lines, those type of things that you can then be catching some of that water and holding on to it if you need to.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we've seen one of our friends, they've got a bunch of sheep and they built a bunch of swales, and they're collecting about 1 million gallons or holding about 1 million gallons of water on their property at this point.
Wow. How, are they holding that in tanks, or have they just built a large impoundment?
That was all just swales.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and then they're running that to an aquaponic greenhouse. So they're actually raising fish in the desert with tropical plants. It's crazy.
I love it. And that's the thing. So many of us, because I was that way for a while, and like I said, until I actually stepped foot in Arizona and got a better understanding of it. Because again, when I think of desert, I think of Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote type situation.
Yeah,
that's really all I have to go on. But seeing
we get that too.
yeah. But people think, well, wait a minute, man, you're really putting a lot of effort and a lot of energy in this uninhabitable desert area. Why in the world would you do that? But when you go out to the desert and you see that what you think is uninhabitable is actually quite inhabited by a whole lot of flora and fauna. I mean, there are critters all over the place in the desert. There's still, like you said, there's water access. These plants are thriving, the more native plants. So it's not like you're trying to go to the moon and build a farm. You are going into an existing ecosystem that produces food, produces animals to be able to manage or to at least be able to thrive in those areas.
If all you can do is just hold the water in place, you can support a lot of life.
Yeah, it's fantastic. No, it's really exciting. So what's the scale? Well, actually, let me put a pin in that because I want to get to that next. But when we were talking a little bit about when we went down this rabbit trail, we were talking about keeping the pigs more in a paddock for a while to tear some stuff up. But you guys also do some deep litter method with the pigs as well, right? Are there times that you're kind of keeping them in even a tighter spot?
Yeah, so I learned a lot from listening to Cliff Davis, and he was talking about his breeders being on deep litter. So when we need soil generation, put the pigs in deep litter. We got it's a 16 by 32 pen, and uh, this one was kind of weird. Everybody was telling me it wasn't going to work. We put some T-posts in the ground, and we put some corrugated siding around it, and then we put hog panels, two layers high on it. So it's about a 8 foot tall wall, and then the corrugated siding, it goes up about 2 feet. So we put some wood chips in there, put the pigs in. Once they started to soil it up pretty well, we put in another layer of wood chips, and we just keep on going until they're up 2 feet high, and then about that time they're ready to go to the processor. And then we pull out the pigs and pull out the soil, and then we spread that all over the orchard. And so we're getting, I think they came out to about 80 cubic yards of soil that we got out of there.
Wow. Through the life cycle of one pig, or multiple pigs, but through one life cycle.
Yeah, so that was 6 Berkshires.
Yeah. Man, that's fantastic.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's pretty great. And we do the same thing. We've got a greenhouse, and so the chickens do the same thing in the deep litter greenhouse. We put them in there in the winter, and then it's like a vegetable garden in the spring and summer, and then after that, pull it all out and start it all over again.
Yeah. So in your experience with that, so when I think of deep litter, I think of the Salatin model, Polyface Farm. So he has that deep litter with his cows, but as he's spreading wood chips in the late fall, early winter, of course he's broadcast spreading cracked corn or field corn into that first layer, and then over the wintertime the cows are pooping more mulch, more poop, and just keeps going and going. In fact, his hay troughs are even on cables so they can be raised.
Yeah.
And then he turns.
Yeah, I think his method is a little more impressive than ours.
Well, yeah, but still, so the key with his is the turning the pigs in, and of course they're finding that sprouted corn underneath there, and that's what's getting them to till. Have you seen with what you're doing, and I don't know if you're doing any seeding there, but are you getting good tillage without having to do that extra labor portion?
Yeah, I mean the pigs want to dig. It really depends. Like the old spots, we haven't done old spots in deep litter, but we've noticed they don't really put their nose in the dirt at all.
Right.
Then the red wattles are all about digging.
Yeah.
So I think the red wattles would be really great in the deep litter. We've only done Berkshires in the deep litter so far.
Yeah. In my experience, you put mainline Duroc in there, they'll go dig tunnels and get out.
Oh yeah.
They like to dig, they always dug foxholes on my place. My goodness. But so that's great. So again, that concept, to quote Salatin again, but this carbaceous diaper, this wood chip layer that's catching all of that manure, that urine, that nutrient, and they just play so well together chemically, breaking down, turning into great compost. And as far as management goes, a 16 by 32 with, you said 5 or 6 total hogs in that?
6.
Yeah.
6. I think we could go to 8, but I like the pigs to have some space.
Yeah.
Depending, a lot of the management of worms and stuff like that, or parasites in deep litter, just comes from the bed depth. So you could, like Penn State has some studies that they've done where they had as many as 1 pig per 20 square feet in deep litter. That's too tight for me. But
yeah.
You give them 100 or 120 square feet per pig in the deep litter, and you give them 2 feet of mulch to dig through, and you got a pretty good, healthy system going on there with plenty of room for them to still run around.
Yeah, and producing, like I said, 80 cubic yards of quality soil in the desert where quality soil is a premium. That's fantastic. So obviously there's a huge input for that to work, and that input is wood chips, so that carbon. Again.
Yep.
Thinking of Arizona, I think of small mesquite and some of the other small trees. Is that a huge expense, or is this just going up higher elevation and getting some of all this loblolly pine and that type of stuff?
So we got really lucky. We're about 2 or 3 miles from the county dump or transfer station, and so there's a tree removal company that was having to pay to dispose of mulch. Or wood chips.
Right.
And so then they started just bringing out to our place instead. They're already driving past our place, so they stopped there, and every few weeks they give us about 100 cubic yards of wood chips.
Oh my!
So we've just got piles of it all over the place.
I'm so jealous. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's really lucky. That's not common for this area. I've tried to sign up for that like chip drop and stuff like that, and there's that just doesn't happen
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
And most of the tree removal service stuff, they've already got people that they're dropping off at. So we got really lucky. And if our supply ever does quit, then the transfer station, they do have a mulching and composting program. So we can go over there and we can get free mulch and we can buy compost for like $20 a yard or something like that.
yeah, yeah. So good backup plan, like you say. Just happen to be in a sweet spot there where you're taking advantage of somebody's trash that they're actually having to pay to dispose of, and you're turning that into free gold, man. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we got super lucky with that setup.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Cool. Well, good deal. So what are you seeing? So with the 20 acres, we talked about the 2-acre orchard area. We've got the 16 by 32 kind of confinement deep litter method. So it sounds like there's a lot of acreage there for expansion potential. I know you've also talked about goats and possibly sheep, so other animals on there for a true polyculture type setup. But what's the scalability look like on this? Where do you scale up and how do you scale up?
Yeah. So I'm going down to part-time at work, so I kind of need to figure out how to scale this up in a hurry.
Yeah, yeah.
So I still have my full-time job as a brewer, and so I'm stepping a little bit back from that. So right now, the goal is basically for every part of the farm enterprise to be profitable at the rate of our monthly expenses. So if one thing doesn't work out, then we have something, another enterprise to back it up for that month and cover everything.
Yeah.
With 20 acres, you can do a good bit. We're talking about trying to do close to 50 pigs per year. I think that with the 20 acres, we could do a lot more than that if we wanted to. And maybe we will one day, but right now I've got a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I'm trying to spend some time with them. I'm gonna hopefully start homeschooling. So right now we're trying to do the 4 pigs a month, 100 to 200 chickens a month, and 50 to 100 ducks a month.
Yeah. Yeah, and
we have plenty of space for expansion, and maybe one of these days there's lots of property around us that's not being used. It's land that's been in families for a long time that there's a 20-acre parcel right next to us that nobody's stepped on other than us for probably 30 years. Okay. So some of that land might be for sale in the near future, and we've got the ability to scale more there if we need to.
Yeah. If you get an opportunity where you've got the finances to buy it, or even lease it for 20 years, some of those people, especially once they see what you've done with your 20 acres, and say, hey, let us, long-term lease 20, 30 years on this, and we can turn this into even more profitable piece of land for you. Fantastic.
Yep.
So I like that you're talking about scaling up, of course, taking a part-time position in your job and having the economic impact of that, and needing to be able to crack that expense nut each month.
Yeah.
But one thing I like, or there's a lot of things I like, but another benefit of your model is cash flow. So where you're flowing animals monthly, you're not waiting that 6 to 9 to 12 month grow out phase. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And you're keeping that cash flow going each month because you're producing a finished product, not only just in pigs but also in your other animals, it sounds like.
Yeah, that is a big part of the reason that we do it the way that we do. Overall, it's a little bit more expensive over the course of the whole year. We have extra gas mileage and stuff like that going to pick the animals up, but it does make the cash flow a lot easier. The overall profitability might be lower, but the cash flow is so much easier this way.
Yeah. Well, and goodness, we could spend a whole podcast just talking about the economics of that cash flow versus profitability. If you're trading off a couple percentage points in profit to have cash on hand every 30 days, then that's huge.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, what we try to do is keep enough cash on hand for a 3-month supply for everything on farm, and then once we have that and stable and we're making a little bit of profit, then we know we can expand to our next step and build some more chicken tractors, bring in more chickens per month. Same thing for the pigs. We need to buy some more pig netting. all that stuff, it adds up in a hurry.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It does. Obviously, good tax deductions there with the purchase and the expansion of that. That's one of those benefits as well. When you start to settle into got all my infrastructure in place and I'm more profitable, then of course there's more of a tax burden that goes along with that. So being able to reinvest that profit into the farm once your monthly living expenses are covered is very, very beneficial as well.
Yeah.
All right. So so along those lines, where do you see yourself in, let's say, 5 years? So young kids moving out to the farm. So in 5 years, kids are a little bit older. You've moved out to the farm, homeschooling the kids, enjoying that type of thing. But what else do you see in 5 years on down the road with the farm?
Well, at that point, the orchard should be actually producing, and that'll. It's crazy when you start like breaking down some of the numbers. You're talking about cash flow. Obviously you put a whole bunch of money into an orchard to start off, and then you see nothing on it for 5 years. But then the returns on that are pretty significant. 5 or 6 years down the road. So hopefully, hopefully the orchard does well, and that's a big part of our plans. We do want to get into a little bit of mobile butchery. We're actually buying a school bus to live in. When we start building our house, we're going to live in a school bus for a little while.
Awesome.
And then hopefully when we build our house, we turn the school bus into a mobile butcher shop. So hopefully at that point, we're just, living the good country life.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, you make me want to be 20 years younger again. I tell you, that sounds like a really cool setup. And I got to say, you're looking at your new family kind of in the through the windshield. You're kind of seeing what you've got coming on down the road, and my boys are full grown and kind of looking at it in the rearview mirror. And I can't emphasize enough the opportunity to raise your family in that rural setting, the opportunity to homeschool your kids so you have more control over what they learn, how they learn, and then the freedoms you get with school doesn't have to be at a desk 7 hours a day. It can be out in the pasture. It could be out, and there's no greater biology that I ever taught the boys than just being out on the farm. I don't know that we cracked open biology book until they were in high school and we got into the genetics side of that. But we could step out on the back porch and say, hey, let's have a biology lesson today with chickens or pigs or anything like that. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with stuff like this, and my 5-year-old, he knows more about biology and concepts that I never even considered until I was in my 20s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I got to tell a funny story. I don't know that I've shared this with any of our channels or anything, but so my oldest son, he's working on cybersecurity and all that stuff to get into a career field in tech that he wants to get into. So in the meantime, he's working a regular job. He's been working at Walmart and stocking and all that type of stuff. And his manager, he's 22 years old. His manager gave him a hard time one day and said, I can't believe Liam had never used a pallet jack before. He's like, I can't believe somebody's never used a pallet jack before. And he's like, I said, I grew up on a farm. He said, I bet you don't know how to castrate a pig. And so just stopped the guy dead in his tracks. He's like, you know how to castrate a pig? He's like, yeah, but I don't know how to run a pallet jack because I didn't grow up in a warehouse, for crying out loud. So it's just the totally different experiences that we have. So you and I both probably had more of a conventional upbringing. I grew up rural, but not on a farm or anything. And now my boys get to tell some interesting stories about pig castration and butchering and all that type of stuff. So it is an incredible life lesson. It's exciting.
I can only imagine, so right now my son's in kindergarten, not being homeschooled. So hopefully this is the only year he does public school. I can only imagine what the conversations are like with his friends, and he's talking about what he participates in the butchery process. He sees it all. So
and then to have that understanding of not only where your food comes from, but how much work's put into it. Our boys really appreciated not wasting as much. I think of chicken. So everybody eats chicken, right? And you think you go to the store and you buy a pack of 6, 8, 10 breasts, and it's like, okay, I bought this at Walmart for XYZ. But then you start thinking about it. Okay, that's somebody processed 3 or 4 chickens or 5 chickens to produce that. hey, where's all the rest of that meat? That was part of that. Obviously it's been parted out and so on. But the boys got a better appreciation for that, to say, hey, we've had to be involved in chicken processing, so when we eat these less desirable cuts, we have more appreciation for it than just saying, well, I don't want that. Just throw that away. I don't want chicken legs. Just throw those away. It's like, no, we're going to eat those, and we're going to enjoy them as well.
Yeah, I mean, we make stock. We use the heads, necks, and feet in our stock pot.
Yeah.
We make pate all the time. My son loves it.
Awesome. Good deal. Well,
they throw out the digestive tract, and that's it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. If people want to find out more about you, do you have an online presence right now where people can kind of check you out?
Yeah, we've got a little bit of an online presence on mostly with Facebook. Our social media platform is Raised in Cochise.
Okay.
So we're in Cochise County. It actually started off with the idea of being more like a cooking and more cooking than farming at the time that I started it off. And now we're doing obviously a lot more farming than just cooking stuff. And then we do have a YouTube channel. It's only got one video on it so far.
Okay.
I think when we start building our house, we're gonna do some videos on that. We're doing a foam dome where we're gonna make it out of, basically it's a geodesic dome where the structure is made out of foam insulation.
Yeah.
So no traditional walls or anything like that. So the house should go up really quick. So that should be a cool little YouTube series.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Get more into the butchery side of things on YouTube as well.
Good. Yeah. Let me encourage you to do that, because not only is that a great way to document for yourself, and then of course the potential of building an audience, so there's additional revenue potential, but there's some tax benefits for that as well. So as you do some of these things, and obviously consult a tax accountant, but that's been a big help for us. Some of the key infrastructure that we've done, documenting it on the YouTube channel with the help of an accountant, has allowed us to write off some of that stuff. And
interesting. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that.
Just incorporate that into your business. So your farm has a social media element. In fact, my accountant had just come back from a 3-day seminar about how to manage taxes for social media and influencers, and it was really eye-opening for her, and it really got us talking about a lot of things. Because when you're building this geodesic dome and you're saying, okay, we're going to live in it, but for the sake of research, education, people watching, and then just pure entertainment value, we're going to do X, Y, Z. So maybe you upgrade something, or you buy something more opulent, a thicker foam, or a different type of element. So a lot of that stuff is tax deductible because it's part of your business plan to build an audience that would generate revenue. So
it's an interesting thing. I love a lot of the homesteading farming YouTube channels, and it's like I want to get into that, but I also don't want like that to be. Some of the channels, it's like very obvious that they're doing homesteading for YouTube rather than using YouTube to document their homestead.
Yep, it's a fine balance for sure, and then you gotta. Anytime you drag out the camera, just whatever time you think it's going to take to do that project, just multiply that by 2 or 3, because that's what's going to happen. It's definitely give and take.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Yeah, I encourage you to do that, and obviously share that with me. We'll make sure in the show notes, of course, we'll have links to since the channel's already there, even though it's got one video, we'll have a link there. We'll have a link to the social media as well, and that way people can find you and maybe put a subscribe thumb on that, and then as you start updating when you're out there building, then people can see that come through on the channel.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Well, man, it's been great talking with you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you for because it's early out in your neck of the woods, so I appreciate you kind of starting the day with me, and great having you on.
Thanks for having me. I've been listening to a lot of the episodes, and enjoyed a lot and learned a lot.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, I pray you have a good day. Well, I really enjoyed having that conversation with Weedy. Appreciate him coming on the show, and definitely appreciate him sending me these images. So this audio version you're listening to right now, if you want to see the images, just go to our YouTube channel, redtoolhouse.com. You'll see a link to you'll see a recent post of this podcast. It's episode 131, Weedy Weidenthal. And if you go to the end of the interview, then you'll see those those visuals there where I kind of do a little slideshow and discuss what you're seeing there. But if you know someone that you would like to have on the podcast, or you would like to sponsor or know somebody that would like to sponsor the podcast, then reach out to me, troy@redtoolhouse.com, and we can get that information over. Or you can, if you want to be on the podcast, you can go to our website, thepasturedpig.com. Just use the podcast request form, a little pre-screening information there that just helps me understand who I'm talking to. Send that to me, and we'll get you guys on there. Well, I appreciate everybody listening and watching and participating and supporting. Again, big shout out to our Patreon supporters. Thank you all so much. I pray you all have a great week, and we'll catch you next time.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.